212 people killed by police in 2015 as of today. The things you haven't been told and the truth about the Baltimore uprising. I'm Tia Treader, and this is North Eugene News. At midnight on May 16, 2011, 7-year-old Ayanna Stanley Jones was sleeping peacefully on the couch in her home in Detroit. Her grandmother sat beside her watching television. Without warning, a flashbang grenade came through the window and landed near Ayanna, scorching her. A group of half a dozen officers from Detroit's SWAT team kicked through the front door. Their lead officer fired a shingle shot through Ayanna's head. She was dead before the ambulance arrived. On November 22, 2014, 12-year-old Tamir Rice sat under a gazebo in a city park playing. Unbeknownst to him, a passerby had called 911, saying that there was an individual with a gun in the park, possibly a toy. Police arrived at the park and shot Tamir mere seconds after seeing him. They refused to administer first aid, tackling and restraining his 14-year-old sister when she tried to help. Paramedics arrived nearly 10 minutes later, but it was too late for Tamir. He died in the hospital the next day. These children were two victims of a police system that kills a black person every 27 hours. The mainstream media doesn't cover most of these deaths, but the stories of some managed to leak out thanks to the hundreds of thousands of people protesting police violence around the country. The people of Baltimore have taken to the streets in protest of the abhorrent treatment of black lives by the police in the U.S. Tension has been building for years, but the final straw was the murder of 25-year-old Freddie Gray. Gray was detained on no charges and taken for one of the police's infamous rough rides. A trip that should have taken 2 minutes took 40, and Gray was not belted in. Handcuffed and chained by his ankles, he was unable to protect himself as the driver deliberately made sharp turns and abrupt stops, jarring him so badly that he severed his spine. He slipped into a coma and died a week later. So tens of thousands of people have begun marching in a movement reminiscent of the civil rights protests of the 1960s. They demand justice for the murdered by police and the overhaul of a system they say is designed to oppress. Police response to protests around the country have been senselessly violent. Masses of officers in riot gear form ranks around marchers and throw tear gas and pepper spray, shoot rubber and wooden bullets. They detain unarmed black protesters and beat them. Undercover cops go into the protests trying to incite violence. Civilians who document these acts are detained, sometimes for days. Individuals who film the actual killings, like Kevin Moore and Ramsey Orta, are jailed. Orta, the man who filmed Eric Garner's murder, discovered pellets of rat poison in his food. His story was corroborated by several other inmates. Back in Baltimore, 85,000 children are barred from attending school, the vast majority of whom are dependent on free school lunches to eat. Government closures of schools prevent them from accessing the only reliable source of food they have, and legislators are considering yanking food stamps from the families of youth that protest. On May 4th, police shot a man in the back during a protest on Penn Street. Immediately after, they began to pepper spray onlookers to clear the scene. Videos taken by multiple witnesses clearly show a man being shot by an officer, and several news sources reported the shooting before the Baltimore Police Department's official statement came out, insisting that no one was shot. Once the BPD's statement was released, the mainstream media rescinded their reports. Of course, the police are not the only members of the justice system that are failing the people of the U.S. Alan Bullock, a teenage protester in Baltimore who broke the window to a police van, faces life in prison and $500,000 bail. In contrast, all 6 officers responsible for the death of Freddie Gray were let out on bail ranging from $150,000 to $250,000 less and face no more than 30 years behind bars. Overwhelmingly, law enforcement officers that kill black individuals are not found guilty of even manslaughter, often despite indisputable evidence that they shot and killed unarmed innocents. Juries want to believe that the justice system is just and rationalize these killings in any way they can to maintain that belief. The protests in Baltimore and around the country continue. North Eugene News will keep you updated as this momentous story unfolds.